So our next feature is a discussion about Kaggle as a platform for data science career. So you're going to have here Professor Eduardo again, and Cibele and Gilberto, who presented a talk earlier today. So please, let's welcome our. Okay, so first of all, I know that our audience already met you guys before, but I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves again, just quickly, so that people remember who everybody is. Not that they need to, but okay.
Okay, so I'm Eduardo. I'm a professor at Unicamp at the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. My main research now is machine learning. My main research line is for computer vision, image classification. I have my favorite research now is for automated diagnosis for melanoma. So this is what I do right now.
My name is Cibele. I work at Twitter as a machine learning software engineer. Before Twitter, I was actually working at Apple as a data scientist, and prior to that, I was at Stanford at Caltech studying electrical engineering. So I think that's just my background. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Gilberto. I'm graduated in electronics engineering here in Brazil. I have a master's also in electrical engineering. I worked for many years for Siemens and then for Petrobras. Then I switched my career to data science in 2014, approximately. I worked last year for Airbnb. I just left Airbnb 10 days ago to join a small startup in Silicon Valley called Oppo as a leader data scientist.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody in the audience already knows Gilberto's experience with Kaggle. So I'm going to ask the other panelists if they have any experience as a Kaggler or as someone posting challenges at Kaggle. So just for each one of you to explain a little bit if you have any experience at Kaggle.
Okay, I have very little experience with Kaggle. When we had the diabetic retinopathy competition 4 years ago, about that, and diabetic retinopathy is the other important line of research in our group, and we were participating in that challenge. In the end, we didn't. It's interesting because not participating in that research line was a very important watermark in my research group, because I was so furious. I was so furious that we didn't participate in that research line. We didn't meet the deadline. And I had a real conversation with my research group after not meeting that deadline. And it's very interesting because when you see the impact of our research not participating in that Kaggle competition and after that conversation, things changed a lot. So it was very important not participating. Of course, I would rather we had participated. And afterwards, I've been aware of several competitions. Often we participate by taking past competitions, taking data of past competitions, but I haven't participated officially of any other task.
Yeah, I'm not much of a Kaggler either, if that's even a term. I've participated mostly in in-class competitions for Kaggle, but not really in the larger, great sense of Kaggle. That said, I've also used the data sets from Kaggle on different projects. But yes, I think that's my background.
Yeah, I joined it.
Yeah, so you already know him, right? Okay.
I joined more than 100 competitions in Kaggle. I won some of them. I got top 10% in a lot of them. And I have a good experience in Kaggle. I'm pretty sure more than anyone in this room. How many people compete in Kaggle right now, here in the audience? Okay, not so much, but yeah. People know that Kaggle is a very good playground. Actually, it's a gym to test your skills and to learn. It's a very good place, especially to learn coding and learn machine learning at the same time. So especially for me, it was a great watermark in my career. When I started doing Kaggle, I was an electrical engineer, automation engineer, actually. And after I started Kaggle, I started to change my career. So Kaggle was always good for me.
Okay. So how do you guys see in your own respective fields, either in academia or in industry, the value of such competitions? So both in terms of maybe bringing new data sets or maybe enabling you to train people or maybe hire people. So how do you see the impact of those open competitions like Kaggle and others, so KDD, ImageNet, so all those in helping you in your own areas?
I think that open competitions have been extremely influential for computer vision, extremely. Computer vision has been molded by open competitions. So we can say Voc Pascal and then ImageNet. That's the history of computer vision in the past 20 years or so. And it's very important also having the model of having withheld test sets. Withheld test sets have changed the game of rigor in machine learning. And that's also very important. Normally, from a scientific point of view, so let me represent academia here. There are some very good competitions, some, let's say, the top 5% of competitions or the top 2% of competitions are very important, very influential competitions that really mold the field, and the other ones are not. Let's put it like that. So I think that it has been really, really important, really important.
I think you talked about hiring, right? Like how important it is for hiring. I think, I'm speaking for myself, not for my company, but I think it's very interesting way for you to be able to assess someone's knowledge of machine learning and able to use their machine learnings in actual problem as opposed to in a theoretical point of view. So it's actually a very good way to assess someone's measurement, measure someone's knowledge on the field. So I think it's actually a very interesting way to be able to hire. I'm not sure if a lot of companies are actually doing that. So I think you'll be able to say more about that.
Yeah, in my opinion, Kaggle is a good gene to practice machine learning in all the ways. There's a lot of features in Kaggle that helps you to learn machine learn, right? And not only machine learn, but all the aspects of the data science. For example, there are the kernels that you can learn how to code in different language to solve the problems. There are the Kaggle forum where you can read previous solutions from previous competitions. Also, you can merge things, merge with other people to compete and learn from other people. All those knowledge you grab from Kaggle, it helps improve your skills, your personal skills, right? In a good way. Because Kaggle is not about the theory, it's more about practice, like coding, right? It's very good to learn from the theory, but only when you put your hands on code and start to coding, you really, really understand the value of the theory, right? And you understand how to make it to bring real value for the company, how to extract the predictions from the data sets, and so on. So I can say Kaggle opened a lot of doors for me, especially in my career. When I reached the top 100 in Kaggle world ranking, I start to get a lot of recruiters send me invitations to interviews all around the world, and they keep inviting me up to now. Like, it was 2.5 years ago when I reached the top one, and I keep receiving every day invitations from recruiters. So they are looking for Kaggle first when try to search for data scientists to hire. So Kaggle opens a lot of doors. Anyone who gets like a top 100 or maybe top 10% in Kaggle word ranking, it's a very good for the career.
Okay, so one last question, then we open to the floor to see if people have more questions. Are there any particular tips that you can provide to our audience about how to engage in competitions, how to choose good competitions to participate in, both on the case of the professor that will be interesting for academia or interesting to be hired or interesting to build a portfolio?
So again, let me defend the academic position. So let's suppose that you are approaching Kaggle as a scientist or a prospective master student, prospective future PhD student. I think there are some things that are very important. We have to have large data sets, so people are not interested in small stuff. We have to, I think one thing that for me is very important is withheld test set. Withheld test set. Because when test sets are public, people can optimize their methods over a published test set. And then numbers inflate very quickly, but not necessarily generalize. So withheld test set is something that for me is very important. And the third one, which is more subjective, is relevant problems. And then we have to be a little bit subjective here. And what's a relevant problem? It's something that is difficult, so things that are solved since the 1990s, probably not going to impress a prospective supervisor. Things that are that have impact, both scientific and societal impact, etc. And finally, if you are approaching Kaggle from a scientific point of view, you have to be a little bit careful with how you are going to get to the top position. So what do I mean? If you are attacking it at both as a warrior and scientist, try not to make a very ugly solution. When we are in a competition and not in a scientific paper, we can be a little bit ugly. But if you are attacking from an academic point of view, try to be not too ugly. It's better to have a third position with a clean solution that then on an academic interview you can defend your solution. You are going to impress your prospective supervisor much more than if you have a first place with this kind of guess using 100 pages of if then. Ensemble is Ensemble is clean. It's theoretically clean to use an ensemble, but sometimes I see things that I think, oh my God, Turing is crying. So if you are from an academic point of view, be careful with that. If you are going to use that as an argument to enter in a future program or to have an interview with a supervisor, try not to have a too ugly solution.
Yeah, so again, I don't have a lot of experience with Kaggle, but resonating, I think, Eduardo's points of view, I think withholding the test set is actually very important. I think there's some papers out there that sometimes they promise a lot of good results because sometimes I think they are optimized for the test set as opposed to the cross-validation test. So that's some very interesting advice, and thank you. And another one would be to just find something that is relevant to the field that you would like to enter, I think. I think there are different areas and different challenges, so I think you should just find something that is relevant to the field that you would like to enter as a data scientist.
A tip for someone that wants to like start competing. One thing that I usually do is try to at least join all the competitions, at least to take a look at the data set and understand the problem, understand the question what they're trying to solve, and try to get used with the data set. And if you get used, if it's something that you feel comfortable problem solving, invest more time trying to solve that problem. Don't invest much time in problems that you think it's so hard for you, or you don't know much about how to solve that problem. So try to pick the easy ones first to get more skills, more knowledge. Of course, Kaggle is a gene. The test set is open. Anyone can take the test set, can take advantage of like trying to match predictions of test set with the train set, try to build features on the test set to use on the train set to try to get a better score. It's some kind of cheating, because in the real world we don't have the test set, right? I can see a lot of people try to get advantage of the test set in Kaggle. It's true, but it's fair in Kaggle. It's fair, it's in the rules, right? But yeah, the main tip is pick one problem and start solving. My main tip is hands-on coding, only coding, and you can learn only from your mistakes, right? Especially in Kaggle, and this is the best way to learn in Kaggle. Do a lot of mistakes, and you learn from that.
Just on addendum, when I say withheld test sets, I mean actually withheld test labels, because of course I think that's very interesting, the point that you say. Everyone can cheat, and this is something that I recommend. Do not, because especially if you are interested in academia, because you have this impressive result, you'll be in the first place, and then you have the supervisor in front of you that is very impressed, and then she'll ask you, well, how did you got the first place? And then you start, okay, I got the test set and computed the statistical test set, and she'll go, what? Oh my God, what a deception, what a waste of time. So don't do that. Don't do that.
At least if you want to win a competition, you should do that, especially in Kaggle.
Okay, so let's open for questions from the crowd. Do you have? Okay, so.
So I think this one's for Gilberto. So 100 competitions in 4 years, that's about one competition every second week. So I guess my question is, having a full-time job, how do you find time to take on so many competitions and still do well at them?
People always ask to me, it's not easy. I start Kaggle in my spare time, like as a hobby. And in the beginning, no. When I was on the top 100, I started to invest more time in Kaggle. Maybe I spend like 30 hours per week doing just Kaggle in my spare time. So I have a regular job, in the spare time, like 30 hours per week. It's not easy, especially if you have family. You need to manage very well your time.
So this one is for all three. There have been some companies that have hired previous Kaggle grandmasters like H2O, and they are developing products such as driverless, which is like a AutoML, and it's a huge black box that just feeds you feeding data, and it does the feature engineering, it does the modeling, and it outputs. They're actually promoting the product, such as performing really well on Kaggle competitions. So I wanted to know about all three of you. What do you guys think of this black box models starting to be created all around? Because eventually there wouldn't be the need of Kaggle competitions anymore if those models proliferated, start to be using all around. And in your own, whether for adversarial networks or on Twitter or Airbnb or Opal, what would be the use of those black models? Would they be used at all?
Well, one thing that we observe is that once a generation of technology matures, solutions tend to converge to this kind of common denominator. And maybe this wave of machine learning is starting to converge to this kind of common denominator. I don't know. What I would observe is that most problems tend to a handful of solutions. So I don't doubt that maybe a handful of black boxes can give adequate or even very good performance for a large array of problems. So in a way can perform very well in a Kaggle-like environment. And usually what we do research is in the problems who doesn't. So from academic point of view, again, the black box problems are the problems we are not studying from a machine learning point of view. There are problems that are being studied from the application point of view, from the field. I don't know. I say that definitely black box solutions are welcome if they work well, because that democratizes the tool. They can be dangerous if people are overconfident in what they can do. I don't know. Statistics is complicated. The t-test is very dangerous. The t-test has almost 100 years, and it can do a lot of damage in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it. But and maybe I don't know. I think that there's definitely a place for black box solutions. But have we reached that point yet? I don't think so. I don't think that we have quite yet reached the point for complete black box solutions.
Yeah, I myself have not used any sort of black box solution for AutoML. I've heard about them, and they are very intriguing, but again, I don't know how stable the technology is and how accurate the results are from that. That said, I think it would be intriguing and it would be enticing for companies to use that, because it would allow for various teams to just use their data and find somewhat of a model that works within their data. That said, I don't know what companies would be using that in today's world. Maybe that's a possibility in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried some of this automatic ML in the past. I heard about some companies like H2O, Data Robots, some big ones like Microsoft, Google, that have some automated machine learning solution. But I never saw one of the solutions like top ranking Kaggle competition. I never saw personally. I would like to see, but I never saw yet. It means human intelligence is still beating machines, right? But curiously, right now I joined Opal, and we are doing automatic machine learning there, but in a different way, like using artificial intelligence to do automated machine learning and not a brute force attack.
More questions?
Thank you. My question is kind of a follow-up to that one. My personal feeling is that, yeah, these products are great and everyone's going to be using them. And what's great about it is that it allows you to focus on other issues when dealing with machine learning in the real world, which is defining in the first place how you want to evaluate your system, which Kaggle does for you, right? The test set is chosen for you. The evaluation metric is chosen for you. You don't have to worry about things such as interpreting your model to see if, explaining your predictions to see if it makes sense, if you can think that this is going to be robust when you deploy it to production on new data, unseen data. So you don't have these issues. You don't have the issue of retraining the model when new data comes in and knowing when to do that or not. You don't have the data leakage issues, I guess, that Mayuk was mentioning. So do you think that we are anticipating that these products could be focusing on the model building bits? Are we still going to be worrying that much about that, or is it not a good thing to have automation so that we can think about other aspects of machine learning, other aspects of integrating machine learning in the real world, and then the skills that would be in demand would not so much be the Kaggle skills?
Yeah, it's true, completely true. I told in my talk that Kaggle is a small piece of all data science process. Kaggle is just the machine learning part, right? It's not about querying the data, cleaning the data, preparing the data, deploying the data. So this is one point that's missing also in the automatic machine learning tools. Like they do all the they try to do the machine learning part, but they don't do the processing, the deploy part, and the querying the data part. And most important of all, it will never replace a data scientist, because data scientists need to find the right questions to solve, right?
Again, I'd like to return to the t-test thing, because again, t-test 100 years, and very, very few people can do it. And it's perfectly automated. I think Excel can do a t-test. I think it can, out of the box. So Excel has it, and very few people can do it. The skepticism I have about black box solutions providing the thing that you say, so okay, we would have this kind of black box solution, and that will free people to do more sophisticated things. I am skeptical. I'm very skeptical about that, because the more sophisticated things, they require even more conceptual preparation and even more theoretical background. And the tendency that I see is that people with black box solutions tend to be used by people that have less theoretical background and have less disposition to acquire the theoretical background, and thus cannot interpret the solution and cannot provide this kind of sophisticated tasks that you are, for example, criticizing if the protocols are okay, and verifying if the solution makes sense. So, yeah, I think that black box solutions definitely provide value, but I would not say that the value that they provide is allowing for more sophisticated pipelines in terms of soundness. I'd say it's the opposite. It's providing solutions where theoretical sophistication is not needed, because the things are very straightforward, and then allowing for people who don't have the theoretical background to do it. And this is, I think, is again the danger. The danger when people are just Kaggling around and they think, okay, I don't have to understand this because it's working, it's alive, so I don't have to really worry about the rest. This is something that worries me quite a lot. This is something that worries me.
I think from my perspective, from an industry point of view, it would be interesting to have an AutoML approach, just because we would be able to democratize, as I was talking about, the machine learning knowledge. But again, going to Eduardo's point of view, I understand what he's mentioning about the fact that people wouldn't have the knowledge to evaluate what they're models are actually saying. So it's also my fear that that would also be a concern if you were to use just AutoML black box kind of models. So.
Hi, my question is from Gepeto. It's more a curiosity. How many, you solve a lot of problems on Kaggle. How many of they did you think that you can direct transpose your solution to a real application? And how many of they you think, no, if it was a real application, I need to do a lot of more work here to make this happen?
Each competition in Kaggle is different. Usually I build a custom solution for that competition, and it's the same in the corporate area. I would say no competition in Kaggle can be exactly translated to a reward or other application, no solution. But what you grab from Kaggle is the knowledge, the skills, right? How to format features, how to do feature engineering, how to train the model correctly, how to validate your model correctly, how to avoid overfitting. This kind of knowledge, this kind of skill you can translate to the corporate world, right? That is the value I see we can grab, extract from Kaggle, improve your skills.
Hi. Going back a little bit to your previous point, one of the things that we also try to measure and to see how it works is hiring, right? And I heard several times before that Kaggle is used as a kind of measuring stick to hire people, right? I would like to hear from you guys, because the previous discussion was exactly like data scientists are not only solving Kaggle problems. We have way more bigger problems, and Kaggle already provides to you, I think, one of the hardest parts of solving a problem is that the question you should answer. So I would like to hear from you about, should we use that? Should we not use that? Should we use something else? Or how did that fit in a process of finding the people that are going to help you solving problems?
Well,
and by the way, both in academia and in industry, because in academia I can also see how that will fit.
Well, again, from an academic point of view, people sometimes want something that I think it's impossible, which is to have this kind of acid test that you take this strip of paper and then you put the strip of paper on the forehead of the candidate, and if it turns blue, okay, you can hire the candidate. And I really don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. That said, I think that the Kaggle environment is incredibly useful. And if I have a prospective student who has competed either formally, either informally on that environment, I would be very interested in knowing that is a curriculum, that is a resume line that has to be present, that has to be present in the resume. But for me, when selecting students and when interviewing students, the most important thing is not the results. Not for master and PhD students. I'm not talking about hiring professors here. I'm talking about master and PhD candidates. And so we are talking about people who are at a very junior level. And at this kind of junior level, it's not that important for me, or it's not important at all if the student has first or fifth place, or if the student has a paper in this journal, or if the student has a paper in that conference. This is not what's important. What's important is when I ask the student, why did you do that? What would you do differently? Do you think this is a good solution? And now that you said, no, it's not very good, what would you do differently nowadays? And then the student has to show a level of maturity, of intellectual maturity, that is compatible with the level that the student pretends. I remember that I accepted the student. I accepted this student immediately, because the student, he did a very simple article. He did a very simple article that involved taking PCA. So yeah, you see, it's not very important. The thing in itself is not very important. His research, he took some data, he did a PCA, and the output of the PCA was the research. And then I started to press the student. How does the PCA work? And then he explained to me that the PCA, his PCA was by singular value decomposition. And then I started asking him, but what's the singular value decomposition? And he told me, oh, the singular value decomposition is the eigenvalue decomposition of the the correlation matrix. And then tell me about eigenvalues and the eigenvalue decomposition. And this was a master candidate, and he actually knew what an eigenvector and an eigenvalue is. And I can say it's one student in 50, maybe in 100, that has an adequate understanding of one eigenvalue or an eigenvector is. It's that low. And I accepted this student immediately. So this is the kind of things that I want, you see? Because then the student has potential to do new original work. If the student just has good results but doesn't have a deep understanding, this person cannot do research, cannot do new original research.
I think, resonating what Eduardo said, I think Kaggle can be used as one metric to evaluate a candidate, but not the entire metric. I think it's just because you can use other people's models and not really understand the inner workings of that, and actually that's very dangerous, I think, both in industry and academia, because we need to understand what exactly we're doing to be able to iterate for a model and get a better model architecture. So I feel like even though it is important and it's a very fun way to learn, I think it should be viewed as one of the metrics, not necessarily as just, like he was saying, the blue stick that says we're hired or not. But yeah, that's my point of view.
Yeah, I agree. Kaggle, it's a small piece in your curriculum. It can, it's a part of your CV, right? Usually, recruiters looks at Kaggle to have a decision if it's going to invite you for interview or not. But interview, you are going to be, they are going. The candidate is going to be evaluated for all the other data science knowledge, right? It's not only about Kaggle. Kaggle is a very small piece. It's machine learning. Your skills with coding, your skills like managing a team also, but it's not all. It's not all the skills you need to be a real good data scientist, even in academia or industry area. But as I said before, of course, it helps. There are a lot of information there. There are a lot of things you can learn from Kaggle, right? So it's a good starting point also. I always recommend do online courses to grab the theory and then apply the knowledge in Kaggle to try to beat the top models there. Only when you start to improve in the leaderboard, you start to get knowledge, you start to feel comfortable building models, and you get more comfortable also to go to the interviews. So, yeah, I agree with you guys. Kaggle, it's a small part, but not all.
But it's relevant. It's relevant.
Okay, so let's thank our panelists. Thank you.